It's March, everybody. It's NCAA Tournament time. We're past Selection Sunday. We're on Analyzing Monday. I think I'm going to call it that now because we've spent a lot of the day just kind of analyzing these brackets. And I think one of the things that you and I have noticed is there are a hell of a lot of guys who have played on the HoopSeen platform, who have starred on the HoopSeen platform. We've tried to put together a list. There are too many to kind of gather. We've had to go through the history books. We've had to kind of go through the databases. We've wrecked both of our brains. One of the teams that, has been the most, one of the biggest stories of the postseason so far, one of the teams right in our backyard here where we mainly operate in the Atlanta area, one of the teams that you are heavily connected with, Kennesaw State, they have probably the most guys who have, written chapters on the HoopSeen platform. So, JY, I'm going to pass you the rock. Why don't you go ahead and tell us about that core of guys they've got over there?
Yeah, so Kennesaw State, listen, I don't think there's any secret that anybody with a brain knew that if whoever had the job at Kennesaw tapped into the resources that were nearby in Metro Atlanta, I mean, heck, you don't have to really leave Cobb County where Kennesaw State's located in Northwest Atlanta. But if you stayed in Atlanta Metro, you can have a team that you'll fill the team that will be competitive and be in the tournament. And that's what Abdur-Rahim did. He's a Cobb County guy, went to Wheeler. I mean, he is a staple in Atlanta basketball. And when he signed that group, Chris Youngblood, Brandon Stroud, Kason Jennings 3 years ago, I guess it was, I wrote that was one of the most important mid-major, non-major classes in college basketball. And not only was I right, this was a historic group for Kennesaw State because this is the first time they've ever made the NCAA tournament at the Division I level. So that to me is value when you look at a recruiting class and guys. And listen, they did that at preview camps. They did that at Georgia Cup. They've done that at Bob Gibbons. They did that at the Atlanta Jam. Like, they have so many events that they've played on our platform, and we saw that competitive nature. More importantly, Chris Youngblood. I mean, when they signed him, I said he was one of the most significant signees of the entire country that year because of his winning ability. We saw them turn around a program at East Coweta, a program that was not known for winning basketball games. They were one of the best teams in the whole Southeast when those guys were there, Brandon Stroud and Chris Youngblood. And so it's not a big surprise to see these guys have the success that they've had at Kennesaw State. They have changed it around. And to me, those are way more important classes than sometimes with the schools that get 3 5-star guys that are there for one and done and go pro, that don't really leave any sort of lasting impact whatsoever on a Blue Blood program. But when you sign guys like this and that trio, I think is really important to note because they are part of really the crap to where they are now, right? Like, they've seen this whole thing through. And even
they're foundational guys.
Right, no question about it. And so I think that's something that when you look at this, I love seeing that. And that's one of my favorite things about what we do at HoopSeen is we see that at a real granular level of seeing what they do in a regional space to knowing what they're going to do at the next level. I've always joked that I can always tell you who the Ohio Valley is going to be, who's going to be the champion of the Ohio Valley based on what we see at our platform every year. Right? Like when Belmont was rolling, their entire starting 5 in their tournament teams were guys that played at HoopSeen. And so I think this year in this tournament, we've got a lot of teams that have that type of flavor as well. So, I think Kennesaw State's the most has the most HoopSeen flavor to their roster this year. Let me throw it to you then, Josh. Like, who would you say is the very best player in the tournament that's played on a HoopSeen platform?
I think you've got to go with Anthony Black here. Yeah. He played with us, over the summer multiple times due to our partnership with NY2LA. He played at the Grassroots Showcase. He played at the Grassroots Showdown. He played at the Grassroots Finale in Orlando. Both of the aforementioned Grassroots Showcase and Showdown were in Louisville. And then he also played at Bob Gibbons Tournament of Champions with our
Best of South.
Best of the South. I'm sorry, Best of the South. There's a lot of events that he played in, and sometimes it's easy to get him mixed up. But he played. So, moral of the story is that summer he played with us a lot. We saw a lot of Anthony Black. I think a lot of us at HoopSeen were pushing and calling, and I want to see Anthony Black this time. I want to see Anthony Black this time.
We were.
And, with our friends over at 3D Empire, he won the Grassroots Finale, which was kind of like an all-encompassing independent, the tournament to crown the best independent team, essentially. And he was the MVP of that 3D Empire team that won the whole thing. And the next weekend, I believe they went out to Vegas and they really put on a show there, further showing that they were one of the best independent teams in the entire country. And now he's been a star over there at Arkansas in his freshman year. And I think when we look up in June or July, whenever the NBA draft is, he is going to be, you're hearing his name called in the lottery.
I got a comp for him, by the way. You know I love me some comps.
I know you do. You're the comp guy. What's your comp? Hit me with it.
Josh Giddey. He's Josh Giddey.
Oh, I like that one. I like that one. Yeah,
He's
Giddey's been really good with the Thunder over there. So yeah, I kind of like
really
that.
Good. I'm with you. Anthony Black is such a tremendous passer. We saw his value. You're right. I thought that 3D Empire team was one of the top 10 teams in the country, regardless of like circuit affiliation or whatever dumb crap you want to associate travel balls with. I thought he was so good. We've seen his value, no question about it. And again, don't get so caught up in the circuits all the time. Like you've got high level guys, and this bracket to me is filled with so many guys that have competed on an independent level and that have had a lot of success. So I kind of want to play a little game of tennis with you. We just kind of mentioned a team and some players that'll play with us. And I think that's going to be something that's pretty important, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
let me throw something at you real quick. Quick. One of the teams, I feel like this is a rarity. One of the coaches that we saw during one of the live periods in which Anthony Black was playing was Mark Few at Gonzaga. I feel like it's rare to see Mark Few out and about on the recruiting trail. He usually, he's out there fishing. He's out there doing outdoorsman stuff, right? He loves that kind of stuff.
Respect.
That kind of stuff. And I respect that, yeah. But we did see him recruiting Anthony Black at one of our events. But Gonzaga has more guys. St. Mary's has more guys. We've expanded from the Southeast to the West Coast. You've been spearheading that. Who from the West Coast have you seen on our HoopSeen platform?
Yeah, good question. So when we ran, this was on that really weird COVID year in 2020. We ran a camp in Salt Lake City in conjunction with our friends at Pro Insight. We were in Salt Lake City, and Nolan Hickman, who's with Gonzaga, originally committed to Kentucky, a Seattle area guy, now a sophomore with Gonzaga, part of the rotation, really a starter and guards and can score and can shoot, played at Wasatch Academy, was one of our MVPs of our West Coast or our HoopSeen West preview camp back in 2020. So not a big surprise to see him shine from there. I hate to use the phrase alumni from our events. I think that's a little overplayed, but really one of our premier guys from that camp that's having success. And again, not a big surprise based on what we saw at that camp, and of course his whole high school career from Wasatch Academy. And then you look at St. Mary's, a team, by the way, in one of our other podcasts, a team that I said I like as a potential sleeper for the Final Four. I really do. I really like Josh Jefferson out of Las Vegas. I thought he was a really important signee. Ironically, it came down to basically St. Mary's and Utah State, which is, I know that you would appreciate out there in the West Coast, some really high level ball. So for a guy that can pick two contenders for March Madness, but yeah, Josh Jefferson, big guy out of Vegas, part of the rotation at St. Mary's, and just a freshman now. I think as a junior, senior, he'll be a huge part of what they do and what they're all about. So he'll get his first taste of March Madness. So yeah, it is pretty cool, isn't it? Right, to see the HoopSeen, guys that have played in our stage really all over the country now getting a chance.
It's guys that we have fond memories of at HoopSeen, and it's not necessarily, it's just guys that we kind of have associations with. Like I can picture a guy, Ernest Uday, who's playing at Kansas. I associate him with the Bob Gibbons Tournament of Champions because his Southeast Elite team won that event. He was the MVP. He had one of the best plays in the history of that event with a game-winning dunk. So that's what we kind of mean, is we have these fond associations, these fond memories of guys who have played on our platforms.
It's funny with Big Ernest. Like, there's been some plays for Kansas where he's caught an oop that I think about that play all the time on court 5.
Yeah,
Bob Gibbons on the far court or on the far basket where he caught the oop, and it reminded me of that. Yeah, so there are so many parallels where I always think about, like, I take it for granted. We've talked about this a lot, about how historic Swanee Sports Academy is, where it really is kind of the preview to what the big stage is at college basketball. How many guys have played on those courts? I mean, I think about Walker Kessler. I was watching him the other day in the NBA. The Suns were playing the Jazz. And I was like, man, I still remember young Walker Kessler down in court 7 making some plays for the Atlanta Celtics, like huge plays down the stretch. Now here he's starting the NBA. So, yeah, I mean, it's really interesting when we look at this where, even like when you look at a team like Furman, Furman's got a roster. They've always had a roster full of guys that have played at HoopSeen. But, an important guy in the rotation is JP Pegues. And, he played with PSB out of Nashville, really during a really odd time when COVID, where guys were still – we didn't really know what to do with the tournaments. And like, there was a lot of inconsistency. But JP Pegues was super consistent. And I remember writing, like, that's a key signee for the Southern Conference team. And here they are, the 27 wins, the first time they made the tournament in 40 years. And a guy that, again, I had a lot of conversations with that staff, like, go recruit this guy. He's going to help you win. And again, we're seeing so many of these types of guys that have proven it on our stage that are now replicating that potential success as well in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you've really been talking to me a lot about JP Big East, and a guy that you really like over at Providence, Devin Carter. He's a guy that you in one of our other podcasts you raved about. Go ahead and pick the rock and talk about Devin Carter.
He took thanks. He took a postseason year at Brewster Academy and played for my friend Jason Smith, who's one of the best coaches in the country. And even Jason and I would go back and forth like, why isn't the nation recruiting this guy? So he goes to South Carolina, has a really good freshman year, transfers to Providence, and fits perfectly with what Ed Cooley does. He plays with a chip on his shoulder. Nobody believes me. I thought he was one of the best players in the country. I think I had him top 60 overall in the nation. I actually think against Kentucky, we talked about this in one of our other pods. I think Devin Carter against Kentucky is going to be the player of the game. I think he's going to be the player of the game. I think he loves those types of matchups because we've seen him do that. He was, again, we talk about MVPs of Bob Gibbons. It's such a great preemptive view as to what these guys are going to be on a stage that matters. And the Bob Gibbons Tournament Champions is one of the few events that are still left in grassroots basketball that replicates what we experience in March for college basketball. And Devin Carter is the guy that the bigger the game, the better the game. And I think he's going to be that type of guy as well when we really look at it. Listen, I'm glad you asked me about him. Literally one of my favorite players that we've ever had on our platform is Devin Carter because he's a competitor. He wins. He wants to win. He's pissed when he doesn't. And that's why I believe in a guy like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And earlier you mentioned Walker Kessler. He was at an Auburn Star. He's played at plenty of our events. He was at an event. He was at one of our junior events, our HoopSeen Next Gen event. As an attendee, he just showed up one day and just watched some games.
Oh, really?
But yeah, it was last year at our HoopSeen Next Gen event. He just showed up and was just chilling there. So he drove up from Auburn. But Auburn's got a couple guys. They always have HoopSeen guys, the guys who have come to our camps, who have played on our stage, who have done this, that, and the other. Two guys that I'm looking at who have been at a million of our camps are KD Johnson and Dylan Cardwell from the Georgia area. Auburn recruits Georgia just as well as everybody. So you know that they're always going to have guys who have been at our camps, who have played at Georgia Cup, who have played at Bob Gibbons, who have played at Best of the South, this, that, and the other. So those two guys at Auburn's are two guys that I'm looking at.
Yeah, I like Auburn always has a roster full of guys. I mean, I've always said it that Bruce Pearl recruits Atlanta better than any coach in the country. By the way, breaking news: David Stoudemire is the new head coach at Georgia Tech. Fascinating to see what that's going to be. So Bruce Pearl, I think, actually may have a run for his money now that David Stoudemire is there, who spent a lot of time in Atlanta. So I went to Lambert. So I'm fascinated by that. So Bruce Pearl may be getting a little challenge this spring and summer at Georgia Tech with Georgia Tech.
Hey. With Amir Abdur-Rahim and Jonas Hayes, I mean, there's a lot of people going to be coming at this Atlanta area. So.
It's fascinating. Yeah, it's really, really fascinating. Indiana is a program that we know is always going to dip it down into Atlanta. I know that you I always thought I was the Caleb Banks fan club truther, but I think you may be more so than me. Caleb's the guy that's played with the Celtics, played with us on a lot of stuff. What else did he play with us?
He played with us at Gibbons. He's played with us. He's popped in at the South from time to time. He's been at our preview camps, Elite Preview, I'm sure. He's been at several of the fall previews. He just kind of he's one of those guys that just has a long history at HoopSeen with a lot of stories in different kind of areas.
Yeah, if you go to hoopseen.com, go to our player search, you'll see all these historical stories that we've got, documented over the course of the years. A couple other teams. Xavier, right? Like you mentioned, Jonas Hayes, when he was an assistant, they recruited really, really well down in Atlanta. Of course, dipped into Alabama, got Colby Jones, who I think is, one of the reasons why I love Anthony Black is his versatility. Colby Jones is arguably one of the 5 most versatile guys, I think, in college basketball, for real. For real, as the kids say.
Yeah.
Did I do that
that's
right?
That's one of the main reasons why I have them going so deep in the tournament. I think that could be a Final Four team, and part of that is because Colby Jones and that really potent backcourt.
Yeah, it's bananas, bro. I don't know. I mean, we could go on and on and on and on and on. I mean, the bracket is full of guys that have played with us over the course of time, and it's really fun to see, and that's something that we want to celebrate. As the bracket gets deeper, I'm sure we'll talk about other guys, or make sure you follow us on Twitter as we see more players that have played on the HoopSeen chapters. But we want to make this a really short video, but we can't because we have so many freaking dudes that have played on this HoopSeen platform. It's been pretty cool to see.
Yeah, and we're both kind of verbose, so that doesn't help either.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't help. It doesn't help at all. But this is fun, man. This is fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I love it. I love it. Well, make sure again. We've got a really cool bracket challenge set up. So if you haven't already, make sure you go fill out your bracket. Join our group. We got a HoopSeen swag pack coming on for the winter. So you're going to be a part of that. We're on Run Your Pool. So go over there and be a part of our HoopSeen bracket challenge. Keep on the lookout for that. And yeah, man, this is a ton of fun. Listen, trust me, if a guy has played on HoopSeen platform, we're going to tweet the crap out of it throughout the course of the tournament. So make sure you keep your eyes peeled right here on HoopSeen. So Josh, this is fun, man. Appreciate it.